Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coaches around the world, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy, the Road Dog, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, also right by my side, the king of the Caribbean himself. Currently, I'm probably sure topless, shirtless. That topless sounds really bad. Sitting outside, having a Mai Tai, Karl Bryan, big shooter. How are you, bud?
Shoots. I don't have a what's it called? A Mai Tai. I do not have one of those.
Hey, listen, I just wanted to throw this by you real quick. I understand from your wife that you're like the only person she's ever met that like the second you step into a shower, you start doing incantations until you step out. Just wondering how that translated after football practice in high school.
I'm trying to think of something clever to say.
They're just like, is he a kicker? Like, what's happening right now? This guy's weird. What is that? How that worked, or what happened there?
I actually played some high school football shoots. Did all right. It was fun.
That's why I asked, because if you're doing incantations that year, it's just like, hey, check out the weird kid in the shower talking to himself. You know?
That wouldn't have gone too well with some of the older boys. They'd be like, what's the short dickhead doing? He's an idiot. Somebody shut him up. He's chanting. Very good.
Speaking of football, though, big weekend in the NFL, allegedly. Can't say I watched a second of it myself, but did you manage to watch some of the games?
Yeah, buddy. Yes, I did. I watched half of one, and then it was kind of over, and then the other. You know, it's funny. Like, say Tony Robbins gets paid like $1 million a year per whatever the number is. Okay, but let's just Tony Robbins gets paid $1 million a year per client because of who he is, not because of what he does. You know what I mean? Like, you know that, and then put any other. You know, it's what other quote unquote guru. Jim Rohn back in the day got paid obscene amounts of money. Just put any guru in there. They're getting paid, but importantly, they get paid for who they are, right? Tony Robbins gets paid for who he is above what he does. Certainly Dan Kennedy could fall into that, Frank Kern, etc. Well, think like a first-line player gets, so in hockey, a first-line player will get $10 million. The best players in the league get about $10 million a year, right? The fourth-line player, same team, same, going out, skating in the same game, same team, same weight room, same practices, same coach, same teammates. He's getting $1 million, even a little bit less. And then the best player's getting $10 million. And it's like, the first line's not 10 times better than the fourth line. Like not even like the best player is not close to 10 times better than the fourth line player. They're better and, more important in many ways. And maybe basketball, like the starting five, they're not 10 times better, or certainly the top one or two are not 10 times better than the sixth man that comes off the bench in basketball, right? It's the same in soccer and baseball, and there's cricket and Aussie rules, football, rugby, what have you. But you know what I mean? Like you get paid. You think of jersey sales and people tuning into the game and people wanting to go to the game, right? Like when Tom Brady comes to town, I don't need to go to the game to know that the stands are chock-a-block. They're full. And when RG3 was a big deal when he came into the league, same thing. He filled the joint. Johnny Football, right? He lasted about less than about 10 games, but he drew a crowd, right? And by the way, he signed a rookie contract to reflect it. So anyways, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I was thinking about that. Like, Tony Robbins gets paid because of who he is, and so do the elite. And, like sport shoots, right? Like you define it's a game defined. So a football game is a game defined with a time limit and a clearly defined score that separates what the winners from the losers. And at the end of every game, right? It's like you go to 6 o'clock news. Is that a thing? 6 o'clock news? But you go to, what I mean, whatever, ESPN.com, and you see the score and it's right there. And you can see that the winner is put on top and the loser is put on the bottom, by the way, regardless of who was home and who was away. But the winner's on the top, the loser's on the bottom. It's just such a clearly defined thing, and like a season is a clearly defined number of games. And then playoffs are defined as a set of games with, again, defined criteria to get into those games, right? Like you have to have a certain record, or you have to, win a division or win a wild card, whatever it is. But the rules at the beginning of the season are so clearly defined. Everybody knows what's coming, and it's very easy for the players to follow, the coaches to follow, for the fans to follow, the supporters to follow, etc. And I don't know, Sheets, imagine if like business was that well defined by way of business outcomes that we were trying to achieve. It's like confusion is the absence of clarity. And I remember in Cancun, I think we didn't do it this year, but we did it the following year. But like all that we had, we put out these coffee mugs and they had, focus.com and whatnot on them. But it said immense speed requires insane clarity, right? Like immense speed requires insane clarity. The more clear you are and the more defined outcomes are, I think the easier it is. Like the Olympics, every year at the Olympics, world records, like Olympic records get broken. Countries' records get broken, and then Olympic records get broken, and world records get broken, right? Why? It's so clearly defined what it is they're looking for achieve, and they got 4 years to get to those Olympics. You know what I mean? It's so tight that if your business had that clear of a goal and an outcome, I don't know, I think we make it so much bloody easier. And by the way, the solution, so for every, if the problem is that we don't have clearly defined things within our business, the solution would be for every clearly defined problem. And remember, when you clearly define a problem, the solution normally kind of jumps out at you. But like for every clearly defined problem your high-end coaching client has, have them come up with 5 tight solutions with measurement, by the way. Again, the season, the game, everybody knows at the 60-minute mark, the game is over. So for every problem, if you had 5 tight solutions, what might that look like, and how much easier could that be? I don't know, Shoots. That's my. You asked me if I watched the playoff games. I don't know. That's just.
I'm just shocked that there was a winner and loser, that not everybody just got participation pins at the end of it. That's kind of shocking. Almost as shocking as you giving out mugs, the Focus.com logo. Like, I thought all of your gear had your mugshot on it. That's kind of interesting. So, anyways.
Next year.
Talk about the first liner getting 10 mil and the fourth liner getting, like, free lunch. Like, that's kind of sounds like a podcast there, Shoots. I'm not sure what the merch sales are like, but can't be that far out of sale. Anywho, aside from that, because I know you, when you're watching stuff, you've got a squirrel brain, to say the least, and it's like it's all over the map, and you typically relate a lot of stuff to business, which is it's kind of interesting, which I'm sure made you an unbelievable person to date. But anyways, did you have any more thoughts kind of flowing through your brain as you're watching that? Especially, I don't know if. Apparently there's a whole bunch of controversy with the Kansas City game, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. Was there anything else floating through your mind that sort of, as you were watching all this stuff?
Yeah. I'll tell you, winners win tournaments and losers lose tournaments actually is straight from the email that I just sent out. In the words of the great Keith Cunningham, a triple bogey is a bad shot followed by a stupid shot. And I'd say in that game, there were like a number, like what happened? There was the refereeing seemed a little bit one-sided. And if you were like a mad, kind of going for. I don't know. I didn't really have a dog in the fight, and I just wanted a really tight, good game that like went down to the wire, and it literally went down to the last second, the last kick. Right? I think they won with 3 seconds to go. You can't get better than that. But I tell you that the reffing was a little bit one-sided. Certainly in the fourth quarter, it felt like things went against Cincinnati. The quarterback threw a couple of interceptions. Okay, so losers lose, winners win. Mahomes had uh, zero interceptions, and Burrows had 2, right? So again, it's like unforced error in tennis. Often tell you who won, or turnovers. And Super Bowl's coming up. Let me tell you, the team that's going to win is the team at the end of the game that has the least turnovers, basically wins, right? Like you can look at the statistics and pretty much tell who's going to win. That's the one that'll stand out above all else. But like then the coach, so then there was the coach, the refereeing was a bit one-sided. I watched the coach go mad. He's ripping off his headset. He's screaming. He didn't seem to calm down. And then who's immediately behind the coach? And that is the players. And then when the coach is that heightened emotionally, guess what happens to the players? They get that heightened emotionally, unfortunately. Like we follow the leader. That's the way it goes. So now, as the play goes, there was a couple other things, but in the last, anybody who watched will know about this, right? But the last play of, actually, coming into the last game, there was a guy, I can't remember his name right now, but he missed a tackle that he should have made. This is an elite, Pro Bowl, like is an elite linebacker, right, for Cincinnati. And then in the last play before the winning field goal, this guy took a 15-yard penalty and hit Mahomes when he was already about a foot out of bounds. And it was a clear, nobody could dispute that was an unnecessary roughing penalty. Well, 15 yards, the winning field goal was 45 yards. That means that it would have been a 60-yard field goal if not for that penalty. So my question is, if the coach didn't lose his mind, and what I think, a heightened emotional, you know what I mean? Like, freaking out a little bit, would that guy have taken that penalty? I'm going to dare say not, and I could be wrong, and I'm happy to be, but I think that that's what happened. So he was a little bit, too heightened, let's call it. And then the worst bit, Shoots, they're walking off the field, and the guy that I mentioned a minute ago that missed a really important tackle, he's seen screaming the guy, what is it, Joseph Osei? I don't even, let's just call him Joseph Osei. I think that's his last name. He's screaming, cameras, microphones everywhere, that guy cost us the game, and he's freaking out about it. You know what I mean? So I come back to a triple bogey is a bad shot followed by a stupid shot. Think about the culture of the team. These guys got to come back and play again next year. They were in the Super Bowl last year. They were, a field goal away. Like they were very, very close from making it to the field goal or making it to the Super Bowl this year. And they just made some stupid errors. And then Road Dog. So now before the last week, they beat the Bills. This is the best bit. I should have started with this. The best bit is they beat the Bills, and then one of the players comes out and says he calls Arrowhead, which is where Kansas City plays. In Kansas City, I mean, Mahomes, Super Bowl champion, and this guy will be a Hall of Famer. And because Burrows has beat him, they called it Burrowhead, as in the name of the quarterback, and called it Burrowhead Stadium instead of Arrowhead Stadium. And let me tell you, the guy who said that is not ready for prime time, because you do not, any Michael Jordan would have beat the crap out of you in the dressing room, in the locker room, if you would have done that on his team. Because what did he do? He gave ammunition. He gave billboard material to the other team before they even started to just train a little bit harder, push a little bit harder, to want it a little bit more. And that's not to suggest that they didn't want it desperately without that. But let me tell you, this game was won with 3 seconds to go. A 1%, 3%, just a little extra push, a little extra oomph is a difference between winning and losing, going to the Super Bowl and going home. And he gave him, you know what I mean? Like a triple bogey is a bad shot followed by a stupid shot. I just saw like a bunch of errors that led that led to mistakes. So anyway, that's what I was thinking. My dad. There's a saying in poker. Um, what is true in poker is true in life, but most people are suckers and don't even know it. Not that that's necessarily relevant here, and I don't want to call Cincinnati suckers by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that statement is very true of the real world. Like what is true in poker is true in life. Most people are suckers, but they don't know it. Um, so what were you asking for? So ideas flowing. I don't know. I'm going to some. What else? The real problem is you're afraid to be seen. Like most people, Road Dog, they will tell us, we go, look, what's the challenge with your business coaching company? What's the problem with the chiropractor's company, the dental company, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, their companies, right? And they'll say that, oh, look, I'm a perfectionist, so I'm not getting anything done, or I'm a perfectionist and, things are struggling. That's why I'm not hiring people. And, I like to micromanage and yada, yada, yada. Or they go, look, I'm no good at lead generation. Everybody else in the competition driving traffic on Facebook. Or they'll say that, look, I'm just not a marketing guy. I'm just not a marketing gal. Or they say that I'm not a marketer. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm not a numbers gal. So again, they don't understand their financial statements. They don't understand margin. They're not concentrating on things like recurring revenue and repeat sales from existing customers. They're just constantly looking for new, right? So they'll say to us that perfection, lead gen, marketing is their challenge. And the real problem, and something that I just sent out recently and that I think might be relevant, it's that they're afraid to be seen. Right? Think about it. This is really relevant, less so for the butcher, baker, candlestick maker, but more so for the business coach. But I say, you got to build a list and you got to put yourself out there and you got to do a webinar and you got to go to the chamber and you got to go to the yacht club and you got to rent out the golf course and the conference room at the golf course and do a presentation for 10 people. You got to get in front of the accountant and convince him that you can solve his client's problems and let him do convince him to let you come in and do a 2-hour presentation to his clients. And it's like, if you think about this, the real problem is that they're afraid to be seen, or maybe it's not that you're scared to fail, it's that you're scared to have other people see you fail, right? And I don't know, I just find that like these football players and whatnot, you're there. These guys are there in front of 50,000 people. They've got a greater fear of not being seen than being seen. You know what I mean? So anyways, thinking about that and efficiency, I think also, again, if you're going to train, for a football game, for a hockey game, for a baseball game, or like at a professional level, we're not talking about beer league on Tuesday night where, it's more about the beer afterwards than it is, winning, efficiency and productivity. It's like, refer back to my emails, but like I send out an email. I don't. So it's something to the effect of like David Goggins has a great book, right? And I recommend it, and I recommend David Goggins. I like him. You know what I mean? The guy's got like a really good attitude, mental toughness, yada yada yada. But like I basically did a book summary of it in like 5 lines. And I was like, my argument was, I don't know if you needed to read that entire book. If you're not a speed reader, I don't know that you needed to read that entire book to get the message, right? And it was like, in his early 40s, he woke up and decided that, being at war with David Goggins was no longer the way. And I think that he had been at war with himself for like multiple decades, like 30 years, right? So David Goggins was at war with himself. And then at some stage, which I believe was in his early 40s, he woke up and said, this isn't the only way for me to win. Right. And then he's like, some days like Road Dog, no doubt you work out religiously, but no doubt there's days where you don't feel like running. You don't feel like hitting the gym. And he's like, I struggle to train too, but I do it. And that's what keeps me mentally tough. And then it's got a compounding effect in other areas of my life. And I find that it's got a positive influence on the people around me. Right. So he thinks you should do that too. And you'll disproportionately win in terms of the effort required to go for the run or to hit the gym. That toughness is gonna help you. And then, by the way, his dad abandoned him when he was young, and then that was the root of a lot of those mental issues. And like that was really what I took away from the book. And I'm like, you know what? Go train your butt off today, tomorrow, next week, every day, and your entire life will benefit, and so will that for those around you. And I'm like, there's the message of the book. And there's a debate. So if you read that or you hear that and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing, and David Goggins is my guy, then go read his entire book word for word. But again, I just debate, like, look, said differently, when you sign a book deal, and they're going to write you $100,000 check, $250,000 check, $1 million check, depending upon your authority and your celebrity and your, following, etc. The book has got to be 200 to 300 pages to justify the $20 price tag. Otherwise, it would look like it's not as valuable against the other books on Amazon.com or at Borders or Chapters of the place where you go to buy the book. You know what I mean? So it has to be that big. And I'm like, I don't know, is that the most effective use of your time? And I would say I'm not so sure, And one thing else, Road Dog, and you're asking random thoughts, but like money follows, there's a saying, money follows management. And I'm sure if you're here and you're a business coach and you've done your studying and done your reading, you've probably heard either those three words or similar. You've heard similar. Money follows management. But truthfully, and I'm not sure if we've talked about this recently, but I think that it's the power for me, especially, we've gone kind of from like a 7-figure company to an 8-figure company. The better the management in different areas, the better the better everything flows, and then then it has this compounding effect that we've talked about ad nauseum in different episodes. But like the money follows management. So if I look at your company and I look at the management of management, that would be your calendar. That would be your follow through with your existing clients. That would be how you track conversation with prospects, how you track conversations with people in maybe land, as in they're thinking about signing up with you, and then following conversations with existing clients. And there's so much more to it. And then also, what about your own learning? Are you doing that in a structured way, or are you just doing it sporadically? Maybe something like what I talked about a minute ago, right? Like with David Goggins, like, are you reading books just to read books? Are you reading books to find, the best? You ever read a book, got 20 pages into it and went, you know what, this one I'm going to pass on? And most people haven't done that. They may not go back to the book, but they don't not go back to the book strategically. They don't go back to the book because it's just not, you know what I mean? They just forgot about it and they moved on or whatever it was. But if you do it in a structured way, like someone will tell us, Road Dog, look, I suck at sales. I'm like, okay, well, how many books on sales have you read in the last 90 days? How many courses have you done in the last 90 days? How many YouTube videos have you done in the last 90 days? Let me see your notes on sales that I can read, take a snapshot of your notepad and send them to me so I can have a look at some of the things that you're learning, you're thinking about, and the notes that you're taking from these books to critique for you. And then, of course, what do you think it is? No, they suck at sales and they haven't read a book, done a YouTube video, done a course in the last 90 days. And that would be a mistake. I don't know if you'd say, then just look for reasons to advance, not retreat, is something else. When you're thinking football and you're thinking baseball, you're thinking Aussie rules football, you're thinking cricket, you're thinking basketball, hockey, every season, it's just, you're trying to advance your career. You're trying to advance your abilities. You're trying to advance your team in the standings. You're trying to get, you come higher in the standings. What happens? You get home field advantage. When? In the playoffs. And if you're like the best team in the entire league come playoff time, if you manage to make it to the champion, the final two teams, whatever it's called in the specific sport, you get home field advantage, and home field advantage matters at a very, very high level. If it goes to 7 games, you're playing at home, that matters. So I don't know, in business, are we looking for reasons to advance? Are you looking for more people in your database? Are you looking for more people to be reaching out to? Are you looking for more joint ventures? Are you looking for ways to do more speaking events? Are you looking for ways to do, more partnerships? Are you looking for more ways to have more staff instead of less staff? Are you looking at better ways to have clearly defined roles for those staff? Remember, money follows management. How do you manage those people? So I don't know. Shoots. I'm kind of just talking up the top of my head. I don't know if I'm. Those are some.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, actually, Karl, if you don't mind. It's because you talk about efficiencies and you talk about your calendar and you look at all that stuff. So I guess I would look at that as when you take a look at your calendar,
Yeah.
whose battles are you fighting? Are you fighting the battles of others because you're too afraid or just too tired of fighting your own fights? Like, is it just easier to put things on your calendar that are just like, well, look at how busy I am. Well, look at, hey, this is a worthy cause that I'm fighting for. It may be, but is that worthy of your future? Is that worthy of your business? Is that worthy of what you're doing?
Nice.
So I would highly encourage everyone to stop fighting your future because you're in love with the familiar. How's
Oh,
that?
say that again, Shoots. That was good.
Stop fighting your future because you're in love with the familiar.
People will fight for their comfort zone at a level mind-boggling. I think
It's
also
crazy.
she said people confuse being busy with being successful. And so what I think you just said is look at your calendar and have the guts, the wherewithal, the foresight, the macro level thinking to look at every appointment, every 15-minute block, every 30-minute block, every hour block, certainly every day, and most definitely every week, quarter, and year, and decide, is this worthy of my time? Is this worthy of my time? Does this help me fight the battle that you want to be fighting, as opposed to somebody else's where, yeah, you're, busy, 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 busy. So you agree with that, Chits?
100%. 100%. And I'm guilty of it. I'm sure you are too. I'm sure there's things on your calendar that even you could get better at. And because for me, I look at it, I'm like, man, what am I doing fighting? Like the amount of brain power and just time that I'm putting towards a couple of the projects right now, I'm like, whoa, I gotta step back from these because this is just, it's all consuming and it's not putting me in the direction where I want to be headed. So it's good once in a while to just do an audit and just kind of look at your calendar and go, okay, what am I actually spending my time on? And is this the best thing I could be spending my time on? Am I doing it as an act of avoidance? That was the big one. That was the big wake up for me. And just sort of like, oh boy, how much time am I spending on certain projects that when anybody else looks at it, they will validate you doing it. But the reality is you darn well know that it's not going to move you forward. Scary when that happens. But speaking of making decisions, Bud, and committing, I got a question here. I hope we have time. I hope you don't ramble forever because I actually have a follow-up to this of a situation that I'm running into right now. But I'll ask this question first that came across. And that is, how do I help my clients get better at deciding? Like, this is just, that's huge, right? And the follow-up was, I find it very consistent where clients just don't commit. So do you have any advice on that first off? And then I'll have a follow-up when you're done.
Nice. I'd say, and I agree, high five, that deciding, you know what I mean? Like what is decision? The root of that word is incision, as in to cut into. So deciding is about saying no to other things in order to take on this thing. But two things: people they don't not decide because they're pessimistic or needing to think about it, quote unquote, right? Which you'll say in a sales environment. They don't decide because they're gut. Right? Making a decision is hard. And we just said a minute ago, like people will fight for their comfort zone at a level, quite frankly, make your eyes water a little bit, especially those like super A types that expect others to be, similar to themselves. And that's just people would significantly rather follow than lead. So making a decision is hard. That's important. And then I think people don't decide because they're too busy looking for a shortcut. Think about that, right? Like, so number one, making a decision is hard. Reminds me of Tony Robbins used to tell a story. I can't remember who it was. It's a famous story that he said many, many, many a times. But he was talking about colonel goes into a room and they've got X amount of information, and that decision needs to be made. And they've been going back and forth for like 6 months and haven't made a decision. They hired this guy. He comes in and he's there for let's say he's there for 25, and he listens. He says I want to hear the side of the story. I want to hear your side of the story. They both just said, okay, let's summarize it. And they gave 10 minutes and 10 minutes. And he goes, here's the decision. And everybody's just blown away. I mean, they've been on this for 6 months and there's so much information. And in 20 minutes, there is no way that he's got even 2% of the information he needs to make the right decision. So somebody comes out, and I think it's, is it Tony Robbins or it's somebody else? Now, somebody says to him, sir, permission to speak freely. He says, granted. And they go, how did you just make a decision? You don't have even 5% of the information that you need in order to make that decision. And you just made it in 20 minutes. And we've been working on this for 6 minutes. I'm wondering how you came to the conclusion that you could, make the decision, and why you decided, and is that the right thing to do? On it, in a way, probably questioning his authority a little bit. And he says, fair enough question, but here it is. You guys haven't decided for 6 months, and the most important thing we need to do is to decide. And then if we're going in the wrong direction, we're going in the wrong direction. We're going to know, and we can recalibrate and start going there. But nobody was going to make a decision. And even if I get very importantly, the most important part of the story is, even if I get all 6 months of this information, I'm still not going to, it's clearly not a right and wrong. This is something where a decision needs to be made. I made it, and we're all going to know in a very short period of time if it's the right one. And if it's the wrong one, we can go in the other direction. But what's most important is that a decision is made. And the guy's like, and you can imagine the learning from that, right? Again, look, go into your calendar and deciding that this is the way you're going to structure it moving forward. You got to decide. And that would be, so number 2 is everybody is looking, what do they say? Everybody's going around it, you're too busy looking for a shortcut, right? So people don't decide. What do? They keep cutting corners and then wonder why they're going around in circles, right? They do 50% expecting 100% result. Well, that's not the way life and business works. Or again, you operate like you're practicing to make a professional football team, like we talked about earlier. You got to work at the level that you're not looking to inspire you, but work at the level that you're looking to inspire your teammates. And then forget inspiring, but what about elevating your teammates, right? So it's decision. You want to be wealthy? Decide. You want to earn $100,000 this year? Decide. You want to earn $500,000 net? Decide. You want to build a 7-figure coaching business, and not platitudinally, and not because that sounds cool and that's what somebody else wants and that's what somebody else said was cool, because you want a 7-figure coaching company and you can show me your list of reasons why, that's actually a good decision. And believe me, a 7-figure coaching company is not for everybody, because suddenly don't think you're going to build a 7-figure coaching company and work 2 days a week. It's not happening. Right. And of course, you show me the anomaly, which you probably can't anyways. But you know what I mean? Somebody who's, it's probably a story that's fictitious. But the bottom line is that if you want to build a 7-figure coaching business, decide, commit. You want to hire everybody. If you're in coaching and you want to, get to multiple 6 figures, you want to get to 7 figures, you should hire a lead generator, right? So that is somebody who picks up the phone, sends messages, private messages, builds a list, etc., goes to the networking functions for you, that goes to the events for you, and basically generates leads for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, 160 a month, on your behalf. Okay, if you want that, and I've no doubt you hear that and you're like, you know what, there's a good chance that you like that idea, and you go, that's exactly what I need. Decide. How do you decide? You bloody hire them. Right? You want to, and maybe you're the other side. You want to hire a coach to work under you so that you can work on business development on, you know what I mean? The other side of it. Well, then decide. You want to have a great relationship with your wife and kids? Decide. And anyway, I could go on, but you want to have a podcast? Decide. You want to, it comes, okay, so I'm trying to think the opposite of that, Shoots, right? Where the worst coaches, we've said this lots of different times in different ways, right, Road Dog? But like the worst coaches, the ones that have the worst success rate, the ones that I believe live in frustration land more than others, is that the ones that go week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter, deciding if they're going to keep going, right? And maybe the ideal approach here is to invert the problem the way I just did. Like ask yourself the question, why don't people decide? Well, Charlie Munger would tell you that the solution is to invert the problem. And apparently he's a lot smarter than you, me, Road Dog combined. So we should listen, right? So invert the problem. So how do you invert the problem? You ask the question, why don't people decide? And let me tell you, I can tell you this with 100% certainty, fear, capitalize it, italicize it, underline it, bold it. Fear is the primary reason people don't make a decision. So going to fear is inverting the problem versus going to, how I'm going to help my client make decisions, right? So if a coach is different, if a coach isn't generating leads and they're staring at a system that works and it's really not that complicated, it's because they don't know. It's not that they don't know how to generate the leads, it's because they're fearful. I said it earlier, they're really afraid of being seen, right? So not fearful of, look, this is important. And again, touching on, I just said it a minute ago, but I think they're not fearful of failing. You're not fearful of failing. They're fearful of other people seeing them fail. You're fearful of people seeing you fail. I am fearful. I'm not scared of failing. I'm fearful of other people seeing me fail. And Road Dog is exactly the same. It's like the DNA. But some people manage that fear a little bit better than others. Now, my question is, how are you doing it? Right. But therefore, providing them a new script, a new approach will not help. Like you're solving the wrong problem, right? You need to get them basically to address the fear, and then you're solving the real problem. Is that making sense? Like there's the Band-Aid problem, and then there's the real problem. We got to go to the real problem, and the real problem is fear. That's what I'm trying to say. So then, and Road Dog, you know this, it's insanely common for people to solve the wrong problem and then wonder why they're going around in circles and experiencing frustration, right? Like coaches are famous for hiding behind their computer, staring at the phone and experiencing pain, right? Don't do that. Fear is the issue. So there you go, Shoots. That's what deciding. Just gotta decide.
Well, the funny thing is, Karl, when you were telling, that was the General Schwarzkopf story that you're talking about there for Tony Robbins.
That's it.
The only guy that's probably as into Tony Robbins as you is me. So there you go. With that in mind, it's just funny. Like you think of the decisions that he made and the impact of those decisions. And then we worry about some of the, like, what are the decisions that we're truly making? Like, no one's going to die. You know what I mean? Like, come on, people. Like, what are we doing here? Right. And I'm speaking to myself here, like 100%. Like, what are the decisions that I'm hesitating on? Like, really, what's the worst case that's going to happen with that? Like, it's just wild to me. Just wild. Anyways.
That's inverting the problem, right? So you'd be better served going to like, what goes wrong if I make this decision and it goes sideways? What goes wrong, right? Like, and like we're all gonna die, right? We all came in naked. We're all going out naked. We all came in broke. We're all leaving broke. The end, right? Like, so it's just a game. There's a famous quote, right, by Steve Jobs, where he's like, just don't, you know what I mean? People way dumber than you are like changing the world and clearly he's talking about himself, by the way, right? Where he's just done so many amazing things, but he's also got a list of failures, right? He got fired by his own bloody company, right? But he dusted himself off, went and, sold Pixar for $1 billion, did okay. But you know what I mean? Like we're all.
So it's a perfect segue, Karl. Perfect segue to my next question, real quick. And I'm gonna, because I know we need to wrap, but real life problem, real life situation. Okay, so folks, this isn't all just like pie in the sky stuff. Because it's interesting. You talk of Steve Jobs got fired from his own company because sometimes it's really difficult to do the things that must be done, and people don't want to hear it because they're too comfortable to that comfort zone. Okay, blah, blah, blah. I've got a client, and let's just say that they have a person in a position that is making decisions on behalf of the company. Yep. And I'm a consultant to this business, and I already made the statement of, if you guys continue down the path that you're currently on, you will be insolvent within the next 6 months. So you talk about like the last question was all about getting clients to make better decisions, or just getting better at making a decision. Yep. How do you actually, if you are me, how do I go to the ownership team and go, this person that you have, that they have a longer term relationship with, I'm new guy in here, right? So just think of the unique position that I'm in. I get floated in here and I'm like, this is not going well. And this guy's making some decisions that are only going to lead to your demise. What do you do?
Okay. Great question, by the way. Little red arrow, you are here. You got to go to the guy. Does the owner realize? So this is does the owner realize that this guy's making some bad decisions and that the company's going to pay a pretty ghastly price if he continues?
He's not at the level of awareness that he needs to be at, put it that way. And the crazy part is, this is still a startup. They're, if anything, in his mind, we'll just raise some more capital. I'm like, this is just danger written all.
No, okay, love it. Okay, so just as a frame, little red arrow, you are here. You have tangible examples of like where he's made a decision and the company's paid a price? Hard examples?
Yeah, well, I said it last week, and I'm going to actually copy and paste my exactly the same suggestions this week. And that's just me being a bit of a prick, but I just, me, that's just like, yeah. My point to the two of the owners that I said last week specifically was, we're going to go down a path where we're going to lose another $1,000 of ad spend in the next 7 days. But more importantly, we're going to lose another 7 days. Yeah. So, and we're going to be in so now I get to reiterate that point on their call today and just say, so here we are 7 days later, another $1,000 is gone in marketing ad spend and another 7 days is lost. And I'm looking at the next 7 days and the recommendations being made, and we're going to be in the exact same spot next week.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, need more info, I think, to give you the right. But here's what I'm doing, right? First of all, I want tangible examples of where this guy's making mistakes. And I want those in my back pocket, and I would practice saying them, and I would know exactly what they are. But what I'm going to him, and as I remember, thinking is nothing more than asking and answering questions to yourself. So you want to direct his thinking and then do the old thing where it becomes his idea. You don't want it to be your idea. You want it to be his idea. And the way that you get there is by asking him questions. And then, by the way, through that process, giving him, so here's the result of the last time. How is that affecting the company? Do you know what I mean? So then, and then he's going to be like, yeah, that didn't work out so well. And that's not so great. So rather than, and it's not, okay, so get this guy fired. Sounds like they're not ready for that. But I would want the like I would have like a short term, like a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 kind of solution to the problem. And phase 1 is to suspend his decision-making ability for a 60-day period. So hang on a second, listen. And all you do there is that the owner needs to sign off on decisions for the next 60 days instead of this guy signing off on the decision for the next 60 days. Rather than say, this guy can never make a decision again, or to fire him, because it just sounds to me like a little red arrow, you are here. The guy's not even quite aware of this. He's got a long-standing relationship with that individual. I'm looking for a phase 1 solution, not a optimal solution where this guy gets shown the door, or because it sounds like that's what you're thinking, right? Something more.
Well, yeah, it has to be, right? The thing that's actually blown my mind the most, dude, is the fact of how completely unaware and the lack of urgency by the owners. Like, that strikes me as just like, so I'm sitting there going, sorry?
These guys raise money as part of their solution. That's what they do. That's how they got to where they're.
Yeah, and that's sort of the next stage as well. And I'm like, I don't know how you're selling anything. I don't know how you're getting people to invest at this stage, but it blows my mind. And I think this is just general, right? Like, business owners fall into such a strong belief and mindset that they don't even realize the mistakes that they're making, and they're completely unaware of just the reality. So when you always say that little red arrow, you are here, do they even acknowledge and understand what that means? And I don't think they do.
Yeah. I said money follows management, and then trouble and fires follow mismanagement. Let me give you another frame, Shoots, that might help you, right? So what most people do is they come in a situation and then it's like yes or no. So as an example from business coaching mastery that frankly I love and I think is tremendous learnings is in should I sell my business or should I not sell my business, right? So that's option number one or option number two. And then I've said for years, like the real money and the reason why coaches, consultants, and good ones like us get paid, very well and then back it up hardcore is option number three that they're not thinking of, right? So should I sell my company? Should I not sell my company? 1 and 2. Well, what's number? Just immediately go to option number 3. The same way that I went to a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, like suspending his decision-making ability for 60 days. And that's not that he can't make the decisions. It's that you want the signature of the big boss on every decision between now and 60 days so that we can make sure we're all on the same page and that we're thinking second, third, fourth order consequences through and deciding if this is a good game plan, right? So should I sell my business? Should I not, right? And then option number 3 could be to license, could be to franchise, could be to shore things up over the next 3 years so that we exit in, 36 months time. More to the point, I think really, so what I do in business coaching mastery, put your hand up if you'd like to sell your company for $5 million and would say yes. Again, guess what happens? Every single room, hand in the room goes up, including mine, because I'm like, oh yeah, $5 million. That sounds great. Well, real quick, we do the math and I say, okay, so depends, some people know a lot, we got people like Alan Best in the room, who's like, heavyweight in the M&A world. And then others that, just frankly, they don't have a clue and they would tell you that, right, about buying and selling companies. I said, okay, well, here's what happens. I'm going to give you a multiple on your company, and I'm going to give you a 5 multiple, by the way, which would be a pretty darn good one. Well, if I gave you $5 million and a 5 multiple, guess what? You were making $1 million a year a minute ago, okay? And I'm going to give you 5 schmil. Well, when we take 5 schmil and then we subtract the fees that we got to pay the broker, the M&A guy, the investment banker, it's going to look like X, call it 500 grand, right? So that would be 10%. I'm going to pay a little thing called tax, right? Boom, wipe off 20%. There's $1 million. 1.5 has been lit on fire. There's going to be some debt. You're going to have to pay off some staff, write off some contracts. There's going to be some debt there. So again, call that whatever. At the end of the day, I started knocking things down and we came to the conclusion in audience participation that we were going to end up with $2.75 million once everything was paid. And I said, so a minute ago you were making remember there's option number 1, do I sell the company? Option number 2, do I not sell the company? And I'm thinking, what's option number 3, right? And that's where my mind, and by the way, option number 3 is, often got 10 different variables or 10 different, high level considerations that could be the solution. So anyway, so what I said, so really knowing what you now know with more info, because really the answer is I don't have enough information, right? And, that's super critical here. If you were making $1 million a year and then you take a check for 2.75 by the time everything was paid off, is this really a good decision? And then I have to ask the question about your health. And I got to ask the question about your age. And then I want to ask the question about your industry. And I got to ask you a question about, how much work you're putting on and how important different individuals are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the conclusion that the room very quickly came to was, and this, I led everybody down this, but why don't we hire a guy and we'll pay him with incentives, 250 grand. We'll let him run the company. And then I said, help me out. If we were paying him 250 grand, which is a hell of a lot of money, how much am I taking home? And it's, very, very grade 4 math is 750 grand. So I'm making 750 grand. I got a guy coming in to do the company. And I said, often what happens is this guy sells the company. And then what does he end up doing? And the answer is, oh, he becomes a consultant like us because he enjoys doing that. And I said, well, guess who he could consult? How about his own company? And what company is he going to ever know better than his own company? So you see how option number 3, and, the story went on, and there's some other variables here that we won't have to worry about. But no doubt, hopefully, if you thought selling your company for $5 million was a great idea and you put up your hand, it might not be the best decision. So remember, you want to own a business that you want to own forever, but if you needed to, you could sell it tomorrow at the drop of a hat. Now that's a business worth owning, right? And anyway, so you bring in a guy to run the company. So that could be option number 3. If, we talked a little, in fact, on the pre-show, we were talking about, business brokers, M&A folks, and then investment bankers. For those listening, business brokers, it's like the wild, wild west of selling business. This is like no fiduciary responsibility. M&A guys got some fiduciary responsibilities, and investment bankers have big time fiduciary responsibilities. And if they provide financial statements and do a bad job, there's regulation where they can lose their license, and they've got some responsibilities. So translation, if you're going to sell your company, an investment banker would be 1,000,000 times more expensive, far more expensive, but would be a better investment than a business broker, quite possibly. Anyway, Shoots, you see, like, there's option 1, there's option 2, and then there's option number 3. And it's like, what's always looking at 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. So rather than sacking this guy, getting him, and not that you're saying you want to get him fired, but you know what I mean? Like, ripping him out of control. What's option number 3? And that might be
and I like that. By the way, I'm just going to launch something brand new for our insiders. I'm launching a question here for you guys. So there it is. Anyways, I just wanted to just say real quick with that, Karl. And again, I don't need to take all of this stuff on at once, right? Like, I think that's kind of reality is I think my actionable items that I'm going to take from this is create a timeline. Like because I know they want to exit. So I'm going to create a timeline and have that conversation and create that gap of when do you want to exit by? Little red arrow, you are here, and I'm going to create that gap, and I'm going to then ask the question of, is the current game plan going to get you there by the time that you want? And then once we've solved this, then I'm going to have that conversation of, is it really worth it to sell? And I think that's just sort of now be putting that one in my back pocket for later. So anyways, just wanted to throw that out there, and I hope that these real life examples are helpful, and that's what I'm kind of polling right now. And Karl's probably wondering what is happening on my dashboard right now, but there you are. I just wanted to get some feedback on that too, so I appreciate that. Any other thoughts on that, Karl? And while we're at it, I'm about to close this poll to our insiders. Any final thoughts? What are some things that people can take tangible advice? Obviously, these real life examples, let's get those in, but what else can somebody take from today's episode and implement in their business today?
I want to say this. There's a saying that I have used for years. Old money equals never sell, right? Therefore, like, again, you think of the richest people in the world, the Waltons as an example. Difference between Sam Walton and everybody else is he never stole, because you realize that, Walton, which Walmart, by the way, like, he never sold. Like, it's broken up. All the different family members have still got, a good chunk of Walmart. That's the difference between, him. He never sold, right? So an example of, do you know a family with old money? Okay, and you probably do, right? Well, let me tell you that. If you introduce me to I'll introduce you to the great-great-grandfather and the great-great-grandmother, and guess what? They had the guts and wherewithal to never sell. So just think of that house downtown Vancouver, downtown New York, downtown LA, downtown Sydney, downtown London, etc., Paris. Old money equals never sell. So there is a debate, like, exit, like I said, just so common. People want to exit, especially these young guys in Silicon Valley, et cetera, et cetera. They literally start their company with the goal of exiting. In fact, we talked about this in the last couple of weeks. And I just think that, I don't know, I would not invest my hard-earned money. And I like to think myself as pretty, as an investor, do you know what I mean? Like to think that I'm thinking at a decent level before I'm going and handing over my check. But if you started talking to me about an exit whilst asking me for my check, it would just be a very polite, hard. I'm not going to probably tell you why. I'm not going to get into it because I don't want you coming back and giving me the hard sales pitch, bothering me, whatever. But it would just, in my mind, it's just like a hard no, right? So old money equals never sell. I think there's tremendous, tremendous value in that. And yeah, just again, we kind of talked about, football was the theme of the day. If you operated your business and your clients operated their business really tight and defined, whereby there's a game, like it's what you just did a minute ago, Shoots, right? Where you're like, I'm going to help them. You guys want to exit, and because you're at the end of the day, the situation is the situation with these guys, right? Like you're not going to magically convince them that they don't want to exit at all. That might end up being, I can tell you, if they decide that they don't want an exit, one word will have solved that problem or defined the outcome, and that would be education, right? You got a homeless guy and a multimillionaire, the gap, education. You got a guy with a 1 million or a 6-figure company and a guy with a 7-figure company in the same industry, education. You get a 7-figure company and an 8-figure company, gap, education, right? So what do they say? What got us here won't get us there. Education, education, education. So the way that you're going to need to, take the story that I just gave and then do it in, probably a more powerful way and very strategic way. If you want them to come to the determination that selling the company would actually be a mistake, and a significantly better idea would be to bring in somebody to run it, and they can sit on the beach and, do whatever the heck they want to do and pay other people to run the company. Anyways,
can I just say, Karl, to that? The education that you talk of, that goes back to one of the other things that we talked about, and that is making decisions. That's how you get that education.
There you go.
Would you agree?
High five, Shoots. Yes, 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 and yes. It's hard. Again, decision making, understanding that people will fight for their comfort zone at a level that will make your eyes water, will make all of this a lot easier, right? So, yeah, you know what I mean? Like making decisions is hard because what you're really doing is saying no. When you make a decision, you really got to think about it as like bypassing and saying no to 14 other options. Do you know what I mean? Just saying yes to this one. And that's hard for the average person. And accepting and knowing that it's hard and that there's going to be a lot of fear and anxiety around it will allow you to do what we talked about earlier, but to help them with the real problem as opposed to help them with the make-believe problem of, like, what do I say? If you introduce me to a business coach with a lack of leads, I'll introduce you to a business coach with a lack of confidence, right? I truly, truly believe that. So if that were to be right and for you to agree, that means that you need to solve the fear problem, not the lead generation problem, right? So, and then the anecdote of that for a coach, as an example, gave this 1,000 times, but I'll continue to. What you really got to do is write down a business owner, call it a landscaper, right? Butcher, baker, candlestick maker, and write down 50 ways to help that landscaping company. And believe me, after you've taken, and not like goal setting and time management, like fictitious, lame, platitudinal, of course that will help. But I want you to like you're going to help a lawyer, help them with a do you want a will with that, right? Help them with that. That would go significantly further. So yeah, you know what I mean? Like that will give the coach the confidence to pick up the phone, do the work, and do what they got to do to, start generating leads and feeling comfortable. That's solving the fear problem instead of fear, solving the lead gen problem. Really not that challenging. Like if you're a business coach, you got 10 clients, you're good. Like all you need to do is go form one joint venture with an accountant, a business broker, and a bank manager, and you'd have 10 clients, right? Go to the networking function and you'll end up getting 10 clients. You'll get 10 bad clients and you're in the sandbox, but that's okay. Do you know what I mean? But as you get better at it, the referrals and your reputation, it'll have a compounding effect and better clients will come. But just go to networking functions and you'll get 10 clients if you're any good. So what do you think, Shoots? That's my.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add, in fear of you rambling on for another 15 minutes, that that not making a decision is making a decision in and of itself. And that's the thing. I remember I heard Jordan Peterson say, you're screwed either way, so you might as well just move forward. You know what I mean? Like, and that's it. Like, you just are. Like, people are gonna hate on you no matter what you do. So, I'd rather have other people hate on my success than my failures. So there's that.
There you go, bud. I love it.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning into another episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the king of the Caribbean himself, the man who talks to himself in the shower and the car, Karl Bryan. If you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show and you aren't getting Karl's daily emails or just want more information on how to build and grow and scale your business coaching company, visit focus.com and subscribe today. And again, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review, please share it. Do all the things that are going to move up to, hopefully to get me closer to Karl's starting lineup phase. That would be much appreciated. And that is it for another week, folks. We'll see you on the next episode. And remember, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody. Have an awesome week.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.